Hey guys, Turner Marine here with another video, another Semper Sundays. This one talking about the Battle of Sanh. This is an interesting battle in U.S. history because essentially it was a huge siege on U.S. forces and South Vietnamese forces at the Sanh combat base. It basically the U.S. commanders learned, and this was in the summer of 1967, American commanders learned that the People's Army of North Vietnam were building up forces in the area. And in response to that, they reinforced this base in Sanh, which was kind of located up on this plateau in the valley, so it kind of had a good line of sight to everything around it. And this base had an airstrip, so it was very valuable. They a lot of the enemy were seen in the area, but nothing actually happened. No real fighting. Some little skirmishes here and there, but nothing major. And then in early January of 1968, the North Vietnamese hit the base and attacked, and there was Marines there, and there were soldiers, a little bit of everybody there. In this attack, which they hit with about 300 North Vietnamese troops, actually was able to initially breach the Marine defenses there. So, they obviously hit pretty hard. They were eventually repulsed and kicked out and forced back down into the valley, but it made a clear message that they were able to do some damage. This battle lasted for approximately 4 months, and it was just constant where these guys were being attacked and shelled and all this stuff. It got to the point where they couldn't actually get people in, and they couldn't get supplies into the guys on this base. Because they would just get hit too hard by the ground forces if they drove in. So they ended up having to airdrop a lot of stuff and try to land on the airfield, which is very dangerous because they're worried that their planes were going to get shot down and their other things they're going to be sending in. And they ended up coming up with a strategy which basically, hopefully, would suppress the North Vietnamese anti-aircraft fire to the point where these things could land, drop off their stuff, and go. Let's see. Throughout this time, the Marines would do patrols and to try to find the enemy, figure out where they were, and they would just be battling constantly. There was a lot of fighting during this battle. It's kind of like a summation of the battle and the aftermath of it. It lasted 77 days, where they had this base under siege. During that time, there was 703 American and South Vietnamese forces killed, 2,642 wounded, and 7 missing. North Vietnamese casualties are not known 100%, but it's estimated between 10 and 15,000 dead and wounded. The thing that upset a lot of guys is just like a month or two after this battle, and after all the struggle to defend this base and keep it operational, a new commander came into country and basically ordered the base destroyed and abandoned within a month, which upset a lot of people because a lot of guys were hurt and killed fighting for this, and it kind of went to nothing after that. It was some very intense fighting, and the theory is, if you know anything about the Vietnam War, the Vietnamese essentially tricked the U.S. forces there into thinking that they were kind of that they were calming down, and not a lot was going on, and then the the U.S. forces got hit with the Tet Offensive, which is basically a huge attack across the entire country. They just hit everywhere, and it caused a lot of people to die because of the attack. And what is theorized is that this whole thing at Khe Sanh was used to distract the U.S. military from the actual build-up for the Tet Offensive, which is smart if you think about it on the North Vietnamese side. But that's never been proven, but that's kind of the running theory at the moment. But yeah, definitely look it up. The guys that fought in Vietnam were some tough dudes. They had to deal with scorching hot weather. You're in the middle of a jungle. So it's really hot. It's really humid. You're trying to crawl through this freaking forest, or the jungle, rather. You're constantly sweating. You have all these bugs hitting you, mosquitoes, all that sort of stuff. And it's a very hilly country. It's very up and down. And so you're constantly fighting, on a hill, having to run up the hills, down the hills. It was not easy fighting. And these guys, they did well, all things considered. Kind of what they were up against was not easy. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or concerns, I want to do more in Vietnam. I think it's good to get that information out there because a lot of people, frankly, don't know a ton about it. And I don't know as much as I would like to know about it. But yeah. Alright, guys, if you have any questions, any concerns, anything like that, hit me up. And I'll see you in the next one. Semper Fi.